Welcome back to Flutterby Creations, everyone. I hope you're having a great day so far and that you're getting ready for the change of season. Here in sunny South Africa, it's becoming a little chillier, a little cooler in the evening, and we're needing to put on a little jacket in the mornings when we get up for work. With winter coming, guys, I've been starting to think about all of the little wintry crochet projects I can start, but the one that really comes to mind is crocheted blankets. When it comes to a blanket, I don't know about you, but texture is everything because I really like a cozy blanket. Especially as a reader, when I think of winter, I think cozy blanket and a good book with a cup of tea. I would like to show you my latest whip. Well, maybe it wouldn't be considered my latest whip because it's been going on for a while now. So I started this last year sometime for my son. So it is this lovely granny ripple pattern that I found by Hooked by Robin. And if you are looking for an easy, really pretty blanket pattern, go check her video tutorial out on her granny ripple blankets. She is really good. She makes it super easy, she explains really well, and it just looks so pretty. And before you bring up the fact that this has got holes in and why am I making it for my son, I am going to tweak it a little bit. I'm going to put a border on it, but then I'm also going to put on the back, I'm going to put a nice soft fleecy fabric so that that side can be used to cover my son when he's sleeping. So don't hate, I've got a plan. Please don't be afraid to comment. I'd love to hear, like, what are your favorite winter projects? What's your favorite stitch for blankets? Are you starting a blanket this winter? I'd love to know what your latest whip is, especially for the winter coming up. Let's jump right in. I researched topics like the nicest crochet stitches for blankets, the easiest crochet stitches for blankets, and then the most popular crochet stitches for blankets. And so what we're going to be doing in this video is I'm going to be showing you two of the most popular ones and then one that I really like, and I'm going to categorize them under the easiest crochet stitch, how quickly it's going to be to work up a blanket in that crochet stitch, and then the texture. Okay, so the top two stitches that came up in my search for the stitches that are used in blankets, one of them was the waffle stitch. Okay, so I worked up a tiny little swatch here. As you can see, the waffle stitch looks absolutely beautiful. I love the texture of it. I love the fact that there's little ridges and little dips. And this is quite nice because it's a dense type of stitch, so there's not a lot of holes. And then it's got such a cozy little feel to it. So I really like the texture of this one. And to work a blanket up in this, I think would take a little while, especially if you've never done this stitch before, because it does use a 2-row repeat and it needs a little bit of concentration. You need to be able to read your stitches, but once you get the hang of it, it's pretty easy. I think the waffle stitch would be very nice for a blanket, like maybe a lap blanket or even a cot-sized blanket if you want to do one for a baby or a small child. I think what would really make the stitch look beautiful is if you use a long variegated yarn, and I think it would just look really pretty. It's beautiful in a solid color, but I think variegated yarn, or even changing colors every row or every second or third row, would look really, really pretty with this pattern for a blanket. The next stitch that came up in all of my searches for a stitch that is used a lot in blankets is the moss stitch or the linen stitch. Now here I have a tiny little swatch worked up, and as you can see I have used two different colors because I believe that the linen stitch looks best when multiple colors are used, because then you can pick out the stitches easier. I found that when I worked it up in a single color, you couldn't see the stitches very nicely and it just looked drab. The thing about the linen stitch is that because it's made from a single crochet and a chain, it is a very small stitch. So I think a linen stitch or a moss stitch blanket will take you quite a while to work up, especially if you want even something like a lap blanket or a baby blanket. So I think to help this one speed itself up, I think you would definitely need like a chunky or a super chunky yarn to work up a linen stitch blanket. That's just my personal opinion. I found that even this tiny little swatch took me quite a while to work up, especially because I was changing colors to help see the stitches better. Now, in terms of how nice it is for a blanket, this is a very, very dense stitch. There's like no holes at all. So now there is one problem that I have with the moss stitch, and this is just my personal bugbear. The chain one spaces that you work the stitch into are very hard to find, so you basically have to like feel for them. In terms of concentration, you have to also concentrate just a little bit for this stitch, because you have to go searching for those chain one spaces. Now it could be because I used a DK yarn and not a chunky or a super chunky yarn. Your spaces might be bigger if you use those types of yarns. So guys, those were the top 2 picks on all of my searches that I did. There were definitely other options and choices, which I'll get to in a minute. The third one I'm going to show you is definitely my pick at the moment for blankets, and it is the granny stitch. Okay, so I hope you can see this one nicely. I did use a rather dark colored variegated yarn, so I hope you can see the difference in the stitches for this one. But I really, really like the granny stitch at the moment, and this is a granny stripe, so basically just rows of granny clusters. And I just love the granny stitch because it is super easy. You really don't have to think about it. You just have to set up that first row, and then once that first row is set up, then you just, in every space, you just make a cluster of 3 double crochets into each space to make the granny cluster. And in terms of time, I think it would work up quicker than the other two, the waffle stitch or the moss stitch, because number one, you don't have to think about it. Number two, you get into such a rhythm with this one. Before you know it, you've worked up 5 or 6 rows. In terms of texture, it is a very nice texture. Obviously, it's got the holes. I think this would be perfect for a gift or just a nice cozy blanket to throw over your bed in winter. So yeah, guys, this is definitely my choice at the moment out of these 3 for a blanket. Keep watching if you'd like to know, if you'd like to find out what the other choices were according to my searches for blankets. Alright guys, so let's get into some of the other stitches that were mentioned for crochet blankets. Alright, so one of the most common ones that I've noticed is the double crochet stitch. Now obviously double crochet is super easy, super repetitive, and pretty quick to work up. So I think this would be a very nice blanket if you just want a quick project and something that can work up beautifully with a simple stitch. Now the next one that came up was the shell stitch, which you can see a picture of right here. So the shell stitch, it is beautiful. I love the shell stitch. I think it is really, really pretty, and it's quite textured and also quite drapey. It makes such a pretty blanket. So that was definitely one of the picks in the search as well. So then the next stitch that came up in the search was something called a herringbone stitch. Okay, so now that sounds quite complicated. And then when I looked it up, oh my goodness gracious me, it is a gorgeous stitch, but oh my goodness golly gosh, to work it up, gosh, I don't think I've ever come across a stitch that you have to concentrate that much for. At least I feel you have to concentrate heavily for that stitch, because you're working in the back of the stitch, then you're turning your work and you're working in the front of the stitch, and it's just, there's so many loops and strands and everything that you're going under and around and through, and it's, don't get me wrong, it's like, it's gorgeous, it's absolutely gorgeous. I would love to have a blanket that looks like that, but oh my goodness golly gosh, like it would take me a while. I'd need like a super chunky or those like massive balls of yarn to work up a blanket quickly in that particular stitch. And I would think that that texture would just be so lovely, because it looks like such a thick stitch. I think it would be just so cozy. I would just want to squish it all the time. I think it would be so awesome to have something made from the herringbone stitch. But to be quite honest, it looks like a lot of work. And right now, I really want some easy crochet projects. Okay guys, so the alpine stitch is a very beautiful stitch, guys. It is just a combination of single crochets, double crochets, and working your front posts. So it looks like it is like a 3 or 4 row repeat with alternating things. So it might need a little bit of concentration, but it works up into such a beautiful stitch and such a beautiful blanket pattern that I would totally attempt this. I just think it would be so worth it. And the texture, guys, the texture looks so beautiful. It's such a thick, bushy, squishy texture. I think it would be so beautiful. If you want a nice, thick, cozy, wrap around me, read a good book type blanket, I think that would be one of my choices for a really cozy winter blanket. I think it would definitely take time to do if you wanted something of a good size blanket. But I think once you get it right, guys, I think once you get into the rhythm, I think it could go a little bit faster, but you would just have to keep an eye out for what is supposed to go where. So this is also one of those patterns where I think you need to be able to read your work. But that is something you also pick up on, guys. It's not something that you need to know straight away. So I would love to know down in the comments, what is your favorite stitch that I have mentioned in today's video? What do you think of the stitches? Have you tried any of them? Did you struggle? Did you fly through the stitches? Are my opinions completely different to yours? I would love to know, please. Thanks so much for watching to the end. I really appreciate it. I hope that you're having a blast going into the new season. Enjoy your crochet, guys. Bye.